Hello, fondlings and fondlers. It's friends occasionally not disagreeing. The number one
Woo.
podcast in my bedroom. All right, everybody, we are here today. This is Cody. I got Brett and Justin with me, and we are checking out a classic or crap installment tonight of a video game. I guess we have maybe done one or two of these, but I love this installment because kind of lets us determine whether we think something is meriting its reputation as something good or bad. And tonight we are checking out a little indie game, I guess, if you will, which we'll talk about here in a second. But let's introduce our hosts here tonight and see what they've been up to since our last podcast. Let's go over to Brett first tonight. Brett, what have you been up to?
Primarily, I guess I would say, well, other than the house issues that I was talking about, which I won't go to depth on, but they were not fun, and I spent uh some of the aftermath I still spent was today I was still cleaning up after that mess, but we uh let's see. So I've been playing Elden Ring. That's I guess I would say that's the main thing I get going on. Trying to get in ready up for the DLC, which at this point is out currently. Um I technically don't haven't bought it yet, but my the way that it is structured in this game is you have to be like at a certain progression through the story before you can actually use any of the DLC content.
Oh,
Like
weird.
it's
Yeah.
essentially instead of just like extra things in the world, you actually kind of like leave the world to a different place.
Hmm.
And there's a certain point on the map where you uh like go through a doorway, a dimensional portal kind of thing. I think I actually haven't seen it. But yeah, so it's basically the end of the game when this happens. So I've been frantically like pushing through the world trying to get to the point, just like blowing by everything else that I don't need to do. And I'm getting close, but I'm not quite there yet.
That's
But
the best way to play a Game Boy.
yeah.
Rush
But
through.
I have played it through the whole game already once. So it's like
Oh, okay.
I have already seen all these things primarily. So yeah. But
Wait, so do you have to do it because of like the save or like are you just doing it to refresh yourself?
I am doing so I I don't know for certain if I probably could have continued my old game save that I had like when I from where I beat the game originally
Yeah.
and gone from that point. But I what I wanted to do was kind of was start over and play through it all again. That's just the way I chose to do it. And so I'm doing a new game plus run. So
Hmm.
I'm using my old. I've still got all my like equipment from the first run, and I am continuing through this world a second time.
Nice. Nice. Justin, how about you? What have you been up to?
Actually, kind of the same as what Brad said. I'm glad I'm not the only one who hasn't gotten to the point where I can access the DLC because um, from Software, the company who makes these games, has kind of a history of doing this sort of thing. Like to get to the DLC for the first Dark Souls, just to give you a comparison, you had to kill an optional boss. You had to know to do this. You had to go to the cave behind the optional boss, kill a new monster that spawns there. Then you had to go like halfway across the map and find another like crystal golem that wasn't there before. You have to kill that. Gives you an item. You have to go back to the part behind the optional boss that you
What
killed,
the
and then
hell?
you get yeah. It's more convoluted in Elden Ring. And this is just kind of what you expect when you go into a DLC offering from one of these games.
Good
It's not
Lord.
just, oh, you install it and you play. No, you have to earn the right to play the thing that you paid money for.
Essentially, yes.
Um, yeah. So unlike Brett, though, I have never actually beaten Elden Ring. It was something else came out and I started focusing on that and then never got back to it until several weeks ago. I'm still trying to get to the point where I can access the new content. I've heard of Mog. I know he exists. I know I have to kill him to get to the DLC. I'm trying to get to him, but it is you have to get like you have to get the pieces of a key to access a lift. It gives you access to an area where you find another piece to a key to access another lift that you have to take to get to this area where you have to kill it's very convoluted from what I understand. But I'm working on it. I'm getting there. I don't know how to get into Lanedale Castle. That's kind of where I am right now. Um, so for any listeners who are excited about Shadow of the Erdtree and you're looking forward to playing the new stuff, be ready for a very long uphill slog to get there. Hopefully it'll all be worth it.
So is there such a thing as casual players of these games, or like
No,
non doesn't exist? You're either
no,
really into this or you're not.
pretty much. I
Wow.
mean, there are the easier ways to play it where you use like summons and the sorceries and stuff like that. The true hardcore players say, no, you have to do like a full melee build. You have to, no projectiles, no magic. Otherwise, you're not playing the game right, quote unquote.
Fuck
I,
that.
yeah, I don't subscribe to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's no easy mode in any of the FromSoft games.
Oh my God, that sounds terrible.
No, no, it's
That
amazing. If you haven't experienced it, you don't understand.
doesn't sound amazing, I'll be honest, from the outside.
No,
Um,
it's well, you wouldn't like it because there's no weapon degradation. So
I do like a
It-
good weapon degradation. Yeah.
just for reference, like one of the first enemies you meet in Elden Ring is one of the hardest enemies in the entire game.
yep,
Like you walk out in the world and it just whoops your ass.
yep. It's just like welcome to the lands
Yeah,
between.
welcome to Elden Ring.
That's That's pretty
Uh,
crazy.
it is.
I get what you're saying though about the like. I think about like Fire Emblem Three Houses is one of my favorite games I've played in the last 5 years, and like that does technically have like an expansion pass with like more stuff and the story adds on. I think, and there's like new missions and things. But I'd probably like you have to like go back and replay the game because I don't feel like I could jump into like a continuation of the story if I didn't have the story like fresh in my mind. So even though I could just play that one right away, like I probably still would go back and replay the game anyway.
Sure.
Um, well, geez, since you're all talking video games, I guess I will also plug then too. Most of my time has been spent between two games, one of which we're talking about tonight, and the other of which has been Fallout 4, which I feel like maybe in this last week because it's been like 100 out here for like 6 days or something crazy. I've been avoiding all my outside yard work, so I've been kind of doing some inside chores, painting I painted the floor of my basement for 4 days and playing Fallout 4, but I finally had enough time to like get some serious sessions in, which, I feel like you don't really get grabbed by a game until you have like time to get some lengthy sessions in to really get invested into it. And that's kind of what happened, I think, the last few days here now, where like I've been discovering places and some days I'm like out of ammo, and other days I'm like full of ammo, and I'm just like, oh, let's stop in this place and see what I can fuck up and kill. And but it's been interesting. I mean, I forget. Have you both played Fallout 4?
I've
I
played three. I've not played four.
Yeah, I haven't played 4 yet.
Oh, okay. Well, it's been it's been enjoyable though. I like there's like I mean, but I'm sure like the other Fallout games or many of the games that are set up with the open world like that, there's like, 15 different quests you can do at the same time, like you're picking which one you're going to and stuff at the same time. So I had done like half of a mission earlier in the game when I was playing that was like if you're listening to this and you've played Fallout 4, you'll know what I'm talking about. But essentially, there was like this legend of people playing like American patriotic songs over the radio, and if you played the song, then this black devil was supposed to show up to help you, like against the people that were attacking you or causing you problems or whatnot. And I had done like the first couple parts of that mission like a couple weeks back, and didn't really get back to it until yesterday. I spent a lot of time the day before that, and so I ended up finishing that. I don't know what the mission, something of the devil, I think it was called, was the mission title. But anyway, it ended with you like finding an underground chamber that had like a much better power armor suit that's like kind of shaped like a black devil. And so apparently I out of these like 15 active quests you could take, I randomly chose the one that lets you get like the souped up power armor a little bit earlier because I did see online some people were like, I can see it behind this wall, but I don't know how to get to it. And so I've happened to get that. So I'm hoping that makes my game easier, but we'll see. But I'm having fun with that. So I'll just plug that one tonight so we can get into this.
Nice.
Okay, we are talking about a game here that I believe Justin had played a while back. We'll let him talk about that. And Brett, I'm not sure if you played it just now or a while back. I think more recent, but let's talk about this today. This is called Layers of Fear. And I think all three of us are into good horror related things when it comes to gaming. Brett, I know, gets a lot of PC horror gaming in, and I know Justin does some PC and also some console horror games, and I play the Nintendo Switch. So the only horror for me is waiting 8 years for Metroid Prime to come out, but hey, it's coming. So there's that. So Layer of Fear has been re-released as Layer of Fear Legacy on a couple newer systems now, mostly the Switch, I guess. But just some background on this real quick. We have two teams here that helped work on this. Bloober, Bloober team, and Incuvo Studios. And this came out on February 15th, 2016 originally. So I guess it was one of those perfect Valentine's presents you could get your significant other around the time that year. This is described as a psychological horror adventure game developed by Bloober Team and also published by Aspyr. Originally was published on Linux, Windows, Mac, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One in 2016. As mentioned, later ported to the Nintendo Switch with the Legacy title. Also has been described as horror adventure puzzle indie, and this is about at a 70% ish, somewhere in the 70s. Favorable rating on Metacritic. That's across. It seemed like almost all the systems were kind of close to each other, somewhere in the mid to low 70s. So good one for us to take a look at here for classic or crap. And it's a short one too, we should point out. If you're listening to this and you want to give it a try, it's about 3.5 to 5 hours. Just depends on how thorough you are and kind of how slow you progress through the story mode. And that's kind of the intro at this. So I guess we'll start with Justin first because I know you played this originally. So did you play this like in 2016? Was it that long ago?
Yeah, pretty much like
Okay.
shortly after it came out. It was like it had a lot of buzz about it. And it was like, oh, this is like the new big thing in horror. And so I decided to check it out. I should also point out this is not the same as I hate it when companies do this. It's not the same as Layers of Fear, which was a re-release in 2019 that includes Game 1 and Game 2, because there was a Layers of Fear 2. I don't know if it also includes the DLC though. There's multiple releases of this, and it's a little confusing if you want to like jump into it now. Like the Switch version has the DLC included with the first game, but not the second game, and it's a little muddled. But so if you're looking to jump into this right now, like if you go to Steam, there is Layers of Fear 2016 and then Layers of Fear 2019. 2019 includes the first two games. 2016 includes just the first game, but not the DLC. Be prepared to do a little research if you decide to play this after we're talking about it. I just want to say that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Brett, when did you play this then?
Uh, this was my first time playing it here just about a week ago. So
Okay.
I was aware of it, and it was a game that I had like on a wish list, like an idea list of games to play, but I had never purchased it. So
Okay. Well, I guess I set up tonight's podcast to just kind of be open-ended, but I four main topics for this one, I guess, which I split this game into for analysis. So this essentially is, if I had to describe this game in just a sentence, you're basically a father slash painter who is going through a house which is constantly changing while experiencing all sorts of different psychological phenomenon as that is happening. So that's kind of my one-line summary of this. I don't know, but having only barely seen and played PT, this gave me some hints of that. Wasn't that like the big rage with like you turn around and the hallway's different and you do this thing and the room's different and like that was
mm,
huge when it came out, I
yeah.
remember.
Yeah. Yeah,
Again,
definite.
not on the Nintendo systems, but you know.
Yeah, definite similarities at
Okay.
times.
Well, so here's kind of, I just broke this into graphically. What do you guys think of this? If you have any opinions on that story-wise, what kind of things stood out to you, good or bad, as far as the story? How did the scares work for you in this game? And then what did you think of the overall play style? Were kind of the four I have there. So graphic, story, scares, and play style, and I guess we'll just kind of open it up from there. So, what kind of impressions did you have as you just like got into this game and started exploring and playing?
Um, so for something released in 2016, so 8 years ago at this point, which is kind of mind-boggling to think about. Um, it's not quite photorealistic, but for the time, I think it looks really good. Um, you could argue it's because there's not a lot generally happening at any one given time, but in terms of like just the overall atmosphere, I think yeah, it does a very good job of presenting itself. The house looks lived in, sometimes overly lived in or abandoned at times, but it does have a really good feel visually. I think, especially for the time that it was released. Um, what about you guys?
Yeah, I think I would agree with that generally. It's fair to note as well that I played on the Switch. I bought the Switch version in part because it was on a mega sale.
Hmm.
So it made it pretty appealing there. Uh but also it was fun because I proposed this to my wife as a game that we could just sit down and play together, experience together. And because like we do that quite often is the scary games we play, play those together. And so uh anyways, that's why we did that. And yeah, so I would say even for the Switch, the graphics are pretty solid. Um and like you say, there isn't a lot of it's not really demanding like graphically either. Like it's a good game for the Switch to show off some graphical abilities because there isn't a lot like things aren't moving quickly. There isn't a lot of you're not worried about the frames and stuff. And it doesn't have to like load a ton of stuff because you're not seeing like into the distance. You're all contained in a single room at a time. But all that said, I think it all looked pretty good. I enjoyed the visuals. They looked it was pretty enjoyable. Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely echo. I was kind of impressed with how it looked out of the gate. I don't know if the game tells you to do this or if one of you had told me to do this in the like intro, but immediately when I like Brett got this on the big sale on the Switch store, I was like, the only way I can experience this is gonna have to be in the dark completely and with headphones on, over my ears to just kind of throw me right into that environment. I can't
Mhm.
remember if the game said to do that or not, but that's how I played the whole thing, was definitely like in bed at night. And this time or two I jumped or twitched a little bit, I'm sure was probably not the best for my wife, but yeah, that's how I did. So I thought it actually was, like you guys said, held up pretty good. It was pretty looking. It was a pretty looking game. It really was. So, all right, well, let's talk about the story of this game. What did you think of this story? So we have like a you should mention the main character that you are playing as is a painter who is a failed painter, question mark,
Mhm.
who is also a father, also a husband. Though I don't know, did we get a lot of like there's a lot of husband wife stuff in the base game, and I know I played the DLC, but there's a lot of like father daughter stuff in that, which I don't know that I fully got that the daughter was around so much in the base game.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you do see that there are scenes set in her room and with like
Right.
that involve her, but um, I think for a lot of it, I wasn't sure if she was even still alive or if she had died, and then like the DLC clears that up a bit, but yeah, she's there, but the daughter is very much on the periphery, I think, for the base game anyway.
Yeah, that's what I would say too. She's definitely like mentioned in bits of the story, but I can't recall like really uh, any kind of really detail about what happened with her. Like I said, that there was like that one big scene that like takes place in the child's room. Um, but yeah, I was going to ask as well. Do we know that the character that we're playing is the father? Like, do we know that
Um,
for sure? Or is that just an assumption? Because I don't know that it ever really
I
says.
I don't
I
think
mean,
it's ever
it's probably
implied.
fair to assume that, but
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't think it's ever implied that his wife cheated on him or anything, but so it's assumed he's the dad, I would think.
No, I mean like the character that we are playing as in the game are we the father or are we just some person in the house?
I think you're the dad.
I
Yeah.
think we're the dad because the like painting changes and stuff all the time.
Mhm.
Was my impression at least. It seemed to be like you were collecting artifacts from like the family history, and then like
Mhm.
when you'd interact with the big canvas is when you
Yeah,
go to
okay.
the next chapter, more or less.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't spend a lot of time thinking about that question because it does, yeah, because all the psychological stuff that happens in the game, it's pretty much stated the father was like crazy in some
Mhm.
fashion, and that all that
Yeah.
stuff fits in with someone who is mentally unstable. So
Yeah, it's like you're obsessed with rats. You're a drunk. You never sold a painting in like however many years, that sort of thing. Yeah. So
Yeah, I mean, so do you guys feel like this is kind of hitting to the one thing I wanted to mention here. Do you feel like we are getting enough of the story, or are they hinting at too much of the story? I will say for me, it was a little that they could have given us more.
I
Especially because like just not to cut anybody off here, but just especially because like you find like correspondence between the husband and wife that's like in the form of shorthand notes, and it's like the same two or three notes like over and over and over through the game, and I'm like,
yes.
that's all you had to say to each other?
yeah.
Yeah, I that was one of the things I wrote down was that the story seems interesting and I like that, you know, like a story of somebody like falling into like this psychosis like is just basically going insane. Um there's definitely like a room there for a lot of like interesting things. Like you can go a lot of different directions with it as well. And there seemed to be a lot of things hinted, but and there were some specifics, but it also didn't really connect things together. It was just like here's a piece over here and there's another piece over here. But are they, how do those connect? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, some parts of it were a little disjointed, but I think we get enough of the basic points that you can put it all together and find out that for whatever reason he just your character like lost his spark. He wasn't as successful as he used to be. He turned to drinking. That made his family life suffer, and everything kind of fell apart as a result of that. On that note, it's a very depressing story what we get. um
Yeah.
but anytime you're doing a story presented in epistolary format, like where you're getting a most of it through like notes and recordings and stuff, I mean, you kind of have to fill in some of the gaps yourself, it feels like. I mean, like games have done this for a while, and unless they're really holding your hand through every step of the way, it does feel like you do have to do a little bit of the legwork yourself. And I feel that we get enough of the broad strokes, no pun intended, here that yeah, I felt it did a decent job of portraying the story it was trying to get across. You could miss parts of it, sure, but most of the main beats I think happen every playthrough.
Okay, well let's chat about let's talk about the scares next, I guess, then. So this is an advertised as at least somewhat of a horror game, whether you take that psychologically or just at its face value. Did it meet that standard to you? Like, did you find yourself scared? How often? What types of things within the game world itself were the ones that were making you jump or just kind of have maybe a nerves on your neck stand up type moment? What kind of things stood out to you there?
For me, I think with the scares are the best part of the game. Um, they were I would say like the jump scare stuff was generally pretty good. There definitely was several times where I like literally jumped or like said something out loud. Um, and uh some of those I definitely didn't see coming. Some of them you kind of like you kind of feel them coming and then you like jump anyways. Um, but the jump scares were pretty solid. Uh, for me, the psychological stuff were just like these weird occurrences and like weird just really kind of disturbing imagery and things like that. Um, I really enjoyed a lot of that. I felt it was done pretty darn well overall in that sense.
Ooh. Uh, Disagree. Hard disagree.
Ooh.
Because I played more than one game from the studio, which also has me worried a little bit about the fate of the Silent Hill 2 remake that's coming out later this year. Um, Super Team's games, they sometimes tell good stories. They're almost always pretty to look at, but to me, they're not scary. Um, and a big part of that for Layers of Fear comes with the fact that uh, for the most part, 95% of the time, you're not in any danger. Like this is a walking simulator. If you haven't pieced that together, dear audience, where pretty much you're just like going from room to room. You're opening drawers, you're looking for things, you're solving simple puzzles. But for the most part, there's nothing that can hurt you. And once you realize that, it doesn't matter how many little like messages you see scrawled on the wall that say "Don't turn around" or whatever. It's just like okay, it doesn't really matter if I do or not because sure something might just flash on the screen and go blah blah blah, but it's not going to actually hurt me. There's no penalty for there's no death penalty. There's no setbacks. There are arguably a time or two where you can, I guess, quote unquote, die or run into something that seems like it hurts you, but then you just like get back up. And there's nothing that
Hmm.
really imparts a sense of danger. You're just wandering through this house, piecing together your past, piecing together like your state of mind, and trying to finish this painting. And it tells an okay story, but it's not, to me at least, it is not scary at all. Um, and at least in the PS4 version, which is what I played years and years ago, and just again recently, it's so dark that sometimes you can't even see what's supposed to be scaring you. Like you'll hear an orchestral sting, and it's just like either I'm looking in the wrong spot
I do
or
love
it's too
that.
dark. Yeah, and it's just like, wait, what happened? So,
They'll turn around and
um,
something will have like been thrown across the room, and you're like, I didn't see it, but
yeah, and that's always the problem with first-person horror because if you're not looking where the camera wants you to
yeah.
look, the scare is wasted.
Mm.
So, yeah, I did not find this scary at all. Atmospheric at times, sure, not scary.
I
Well, I'm going to chime in here, and I hate to say these words, but I have to agree with Justin on this one. So I at first was quite paranoid about what was going on inside this house. I kept changing. And then similar to what Justin was just saying here, like once I realized there were no consequences to anything I did, then I stopped really caring about what was attempting to scare me, more or less. There are moments when I think this is what Justin was talking about, like I don't know if it was supposed to be like implied that I like had died or was restarting or what. There were definitely some like uh, double-edged sword. So because it's a first-person perspective game, we're only in this character's head. I don't understand the rules of this world, and the game can't tell me the rules of this world because then it breaks the first-person narrative that it's trying to do. So because of that, I don't know if what I'm doing matters or not. And so when I see like oftentimes it seemed like the ghost of the wife or some image that looked kind of like it would be the wife, I'm assuming, like if you went too near to her where she was at down one of the hallways versus a different hallway, then the screen would kind of, blur a little bit and you'd wake up sideways and you'd have to stand back up and keep going.
Mhm.
I don't know if that mattered or not, though. So I was like, do I care about that? And if I'm supposed to stay away from her, like the game needs to tell me that that matters somehow.
Mhm.
Um, and it does have such a clean interface because it's literally just like seeing whatever he's seeing, and there's no icons or anything else on the screen. So that would be ruined a little bit. But I was just like, I don't know if I'm supposed to redo this part to try to like do that part better, or if I'm supposed to avoid her the next time I see, or if it doesn't matter at all. I don't really know. So.
Mhm.
Brett, you look like you're gonna say something there.
Yeah, well, I was just basically the points that you just made as well. Like there was a point where I realized, oh, I can't actually die in this game. And there was a like a shift in my attitude towards the game at that point.
Yeah.
Where like I say, then I would just kind of like run down halls and just okay, what's gonna happen? Rather than
Mhm.
before, like prior to that point, I was like sneaking around corners and like looking like
Mhm.
right like in real life, like peeking around things. And yeah, once I realized that yeah, nothing really can stop you. I it definitely was much more casual with it, but I still will hold that I enjoyed the atmospheric stuff that they threw at me.
Yeah, very much so. And I will say too, like I mentioned were a few jump scares definitely that got me as I was going through. One of the things I thought this game didn't really do, which was interesting for the style of horror it was going for, is there weren't really a lot of parts where they used imagery of like another person in there with you or like something moving in there with you, because when those moments would happen, like I actually paused a little bit more, like when you'd see a baby in the middle of the hallway suddenly walking, or like a wife or a, I don't know if this is in the DLC or this one, but there was part where like a dog ran across the hallway and I was like, what the fuck? Like there were
Mm.
some moments like that. So stuff that moved, I get it would like definitely change how they'd have to program the game, but those moments I thought scared me a little bit more. So
Sure.
otherwise, I kind of felt like I was walking around a big empty house a little bit.
Mhm.
Yeah, I even put in my notes here, like there was even one hallway that I kept passing through, and it could have been like what's not Mandela effect? What's the other one where you see faces with
Oh, pareidolia.
okay, yes, that one. There was one where like you were at a corner, it was like a T intersection, and you had like I kept going to the right and then back down this hallway, and there was like this, I don't know if it was curtains or like a bedspread or something like bunched up right at that intersection, but like the way it was bunched up just looked like somebody had been wrapped up inside some kind of cloth, and I was like, oh, that sucker's gonna get up and like scare the shit out of me. It never moved, unfortunately, but that's kind
Mhm.
of the types of things I'm saying would have made it even scarier, I think,
Yeah.
if they would have went for that. So, but I do agree it had good atmosphere for sure. Um, okay, let's see. Anything on the play style that noted good or bad for you? Just in terms of like control or like what the game expected you to do. Like I'll say one thing for me that really as an example of this drove me nuts. I still
Mhm.
did it because I'm thorough, but there were about 10,000 cabinets and doors you could open in that place and about 20 notes you could find.
Yep.
That sounds about numerically that sounds accurate, yes.
I was like, which was a shame because then after a while I was like, I'm not even gonna open this one. There's nothing in this one. I've already seen that cabinet like 6 times. There's nothing in that one, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And after a while, it's like, does it really change anything in the end if I find this other note to like the exterminator, calling me crazy because there's no rats in the walls and I keep hearing rats? Does it matter at all? I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's something to be said for interactivity, but if there's nothing to do like 80-90% of the time, it's just busy work. And if you're playing with a
Mhm.
controller, then it's like trying to narrow in on this one drawer out of three, and you keep hitting like the top one and the bottom one, but not the middle one.
Yes.
It's
Yeah,
irritating.
that
Yeah.
was yeah, a
And it had
pain.
like
Yeah.
a weird, like you had to like grab it with one button and then like
Oh,
pull it with the other button, and like that felt both natural and really awkward at the same time.
yeah.
So, just for I guess this is for Cody, since you played on the Switch as well,
Yeah.
and it sounds like you used it in handheld mode primarily.
Hmm.
Okay. Because it was a little interesting. You could play with the Joy-Cons like separate, like one in each hand,
Okay.
and then you could do some more like motion stuff, which was
Hmm.
it was interesting at first, but after opening like 20 cabinets, I was like, this is too much work. I don't want to work as
No wonder
so
this
Yeah.
then
guy went insane.
so then I connected my controller instead and played with that. So
Yeah. And I will say that I mean there are some puzzles, and I stretch the term a little in this that just felt more frustrating than intuitive or clever. Like there's a section where you're in an office and you hear like a phone ringing, and it's just like there's no phone on the desk. You open the drawers, there's no phone inside the desk. You're like looking around to see if there's one on a shelf. Eventually, you see there's like this book that's like sticking out a little bit more than the other ones. Then you pull that, and then that opens something where you see the phone, and that leads to a whole other like kind of frustrating section where you have to be looking in very specific parts to see what you need to do for the next part. And it's just I my playtime would have like the first time through this at least would have probably been like half an hour quicker if I hadn't been like wandering around this 10 by 15-foot room trying to figure out what I'm supposed to see, you know? Um, and yeah, there's a couple sections like that. Like I think
Yeah.
there's one puzzle. Oh, go on.
No, I was gonna say that library sequence you're talking about, that was actually one of the more imaginative set pieces in the game though, where like you did something different at least. Like you
Yeah,
kept climbing up eventually and looking down and
yeah,
Yeah, like the weird kind of like impossibility of the room changing, and
yeah.
you're
Once you
like up in
find
the
it,
air. It's like on the third story, which doesn't it
yeah,
wasn't there before. And
yeah, once you
right.
find it,
yeah,
it's cool. But then there's like later on, there's one that's like in a kitchen, and there's this weight that's sitting on a scale, and you pick it up, and like all these like drawers kind of like flap open and whatnot, and I'm like, okay, and it resets. So I'm like, okay, I need to like open certain drawers to have like a certain
Hmm.
set pattern before I can take this, and it's just like back and forth, back and forth. Nope, there's just a drawer off to the side that has another weight that you pick up that you have to put on to replace the weight that you're taking. It's just very underwhelming once you figure out this is what I'm supposed to have been doing for like the last 15 minutes. Seriously. So some of the puzzle
yeah.
design really could have been tightened up, I think, in this.
I think yeah, the fact that it kind of comes back to like what kind of game is it wanting to be? Like it's primarily a walking simulator where you just walking around looking at stuff, and then like all of a sudden there's like, oh, here's a small puzzle to figure out. And
Mm.
like I would have preferred if it was either one or the other and not like a mix of both. Like
Hmm.
I really enjoy stuff with puzzles, like Resident Evil games typically have a lot of like interesting puzzles that take some effort to figure out. Um and like this game had just a few, really just like three, maybe four things that I would even call a puzzle. Um, like one of them was like opening up a 3-digit lock, and literally all you had to do was like light a candle, and boom, here's three numbers, and they're not even in the wrong
Yeah,
order; they're in the right order. So you just put them in, and you're done.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it was like very simplistic puzzles, quote unquote. And I think if it'd been, yeah. So then when you're walking around, and like then you get a puzzle, you're like, hold on, I wasn't like this isn't what I was
Mhm.
in here for. So, yeah, I think like one or the other would have been better.
Yeah.
Well, this is another thing I had about this game too was I the only one like Justin, you just mentioned that weight puzzle?
Mhm.
Like I took the weight off the scale, I put the weight back on the scale. I did something wrong and that puzzle was gone.
Uh,
And that happened to
really?
me like 4 or 5 times in this game. Like if I fucked up the puzzle the first time, I could not go back and attempt these puzzles again.
Oh, weird.
Hmm.
And so then I was like, do you guys want me to try to find the answers to these things or what? Because I failed it and then like the door would be locked and it wouldn't open again. And I'd be like, okay, I guess I'll never get to even try to solve whatever that was. It's gone.
Whoa. No,
And
that did not
that
happen.
happened quite a few times.
Huh.
I did experience that at least uh probably I'd say at least two times I can remember where I was like, oh, I wanted to do something in this room, and then I got locked out of the room, and I'm like, oh, well, I guess I'm not doing that.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't remember that sort of glitch happening in the PS4 version. But maybe something went
Well,
wrong in the translation. I don't know.
yeah, I don't know that it's a glitch necessarily. I think it's I don't know if we want to talk about like the multiple endings thing, but I'm sure it's connected to that, where if you had solved those puzzles, you might have got a different ending.
Yeah,
But
Yeah.
it's not something that you need to do to finish the game.
right. Yeah, 'cause
Sure.
I think I read there was 3 different endings on this.
Okay.
Sounds like I thought I saw something a couple days ago that had like the new Legacy had more, but this
Mm.
is the one I'm looking at now in 2023. This does say Layers of Fear though.
Mm.
Hmm. I'll have to keep looking at this, but yeah, I assume it has to have something to do with that too. But then I'm like back to the idea of well, like, well, did you want me to try to beat that puzzle, or you're like you're telling me that it doesn't matter because you're not
Mhm.
letting me try it again, and there's no way in hell I'm going to replay this game to just try the weight puzzle in the kitchen again if I got through the game without the weight puzzle in the kitchen.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, like uh, when I played this when it first came out, and when I played it again just like a week or two ago, I swear I did different things. I got the same damn ending. And
Mhm.
I don't quite know how I feel about that. Like, the first time I went through, I think I tried to like go towards like the sounds of I tried to like explore everything. I tried to like, find all of the hidden things. And when I heard voices, I tried to go towards them. This time I just pretty much ignored most of that, tried to get through to the end, same ending. So I don't know what you need to do differently in order to actually get something new. And that's a little bit irritating to me because it's a short game, but still most of what you're doing is just like walking along pretty damn slowly and not really having a whole lot happen that you haven't seen if you played it once. So I don't know. I know there are multiple endings. I have no idea what you're supposed to do to get to some of the other ones.
Yeah, I'm actually reading a list right now. I I saw a comment. I just browsed some other people's commentary on it, and one of them seemed to say that there was like many endings, but there's only three that I see.
Huh.
So
Yeah, that's what I thought I saw the other day was there was more, but I'm only seeing 3 on everything now also.
Huh. Weird.
Yeah, but I wondered that too. Like I assumed it had to be if you solved those certain puzzles, um,
Mhm.
possibly coupled with the ghost of like the wife that kept popping up because she was really the only like recurring thing that popped up in the house here and there. I mean, she shows up maybe
Mhm.
5, 6 times, like I forget.
Yeah.
And she does kill you in quotes when you like get too close to her. So, but again, I was like, am I supposed to stay away from her? Because I don't know if I'm dying. I don't know if this is a changing like my score or the story
I
Right.
or
I never know either.
so,
Yeah. And
but
it's
I
like,
could.
dude, if I open too many, cabinets that have bottles of booze in them, does that change it? Does it like lead me to the drunk ending? Or, if I follow the rats, does that lead me to like a different ending? None of it seemed to matter. So something has to. I just don't know what it is.
Yeah,
So,
it looks like the that's the one thing I had up a second ago was like, here's how to get the third ending, and it was like 30 steps of like, do
oh,
this or you're screwed. It's like, well,
uh,
I I guess how to phrase this, like would you play it again to try and get another ending? Justin, it sounds like you obviously did play it again, but
mhm.
um Cody, would you play it again to try and get another ending? Like I kind of feel like now that I've seen all the scares and the weird stuff, I'm not like I don't know that like I playing through it again would not be really enjoyable. Like it certainly, it wouldn't have the same
yeah.
feeling as seeing it the first time.
I can conclusively say I would not pick this up again. So there's
Ooh.
the
All right.
ending
Well,
or not. So there's that.
ooh. Yeah. Having played through it twice and trying to do different things and not having any noticeable difference at the end. Yeah, I can't see myself doing this a third time. I mean, it's despite the atmosphere, despite the nice graphics for the time, I can't see myself going through it again.
I mean,
So
yeah, I don't know.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. There
which
wasn't enough there for me to like if I need a walkthrough with 25 steps of like do this, do this, do this, do this to get and maybe like if I was following that walkthrough, it like seemed more natural than it does in print. Maybe then
mm.
that would make more sense to me. But like just reading that, like I don't really care what the ending is if I have to do all that to get to the ending, to be quite
See,
Mhm.
honest.
see, I'm fine with doing that sort of thing for a game like Elden Ring, where there's actually interaction and gameplay, and your choices do have noticeable impacts. But this, it's just hallway, 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 room, hallway, room, hallway, hallway, and they all look the same, and it just gets old after a while, despite being how short this is. By the by three two-thirds of the way through my second playthrough, I wanted it to be over. In all honesty, so
Yeah, I could agree with that, I guess, as well.
yeah.
Which is tipping my hand a little bit here, I suppose, but there we
Yeah.
go.
Well, we haven't talked
Anybody
about
ha
the.
Oh,
Oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. I was
What's
going to say
that?
we haven't talked about the DLC yet, so
Oh
there's
yeah,
that might
do
change
we
things.
do we want to put a number on this and then talk about DLC? Who all played the DLC? Did
I
anybody play the DLC?
I started playing it.
Okay.
The version I had didn't come with it, and I wasn't about to shell out like $10 or whatever to buy the DLC for an 8-year-old game that I wasn't that fond of in the first place. I did watch a playthrough of it on YouTube though, so I
Come
at
on,
least know
Justin.
what
You just have
happens.
to find the record in the room at the end of the hall, take it back to the first room of the house, turn it on the record player, but play the record backwards, flip it upside down, go to the other side, find, and then the DLC
Uh,
activates. Yes.
but at least I know
Um,
what happens in
okay,
one
well
ending of the
let's
game.
just put a number on this one and then we'll chat about them briefly here to wrap up.
Sure.
So I am just gonna I can go first on this one. This is pocketgamer.com has a review here of Layers of Fear Legacy. I'll skip the entire article for everybody, sans the final paragraph, which reads, "This is psychological horror at its finest. Sometimes it's unnervingly subtle, other times it'll bash you over the head with gruesome imagery. Layers of Fear is definitely a game to play if you're a fan of the genre or indeed just good, often terrifying world building." Bullshit. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars gold rating on this. Ugh,
Ooh.
no. This had problems that we already mentioned. I was just tired of the game. Nothing was scaring me. I did think the house was intriguing. I I did I do enjoy that they were able to manipulate space in such a way. Like I think a long time ago mentioned a game called Perception that I played, which does a similar thing where it's like recycling those same map spaces, but drastically changing how they're presenting that space to you with what's in it and what's happened there and everything. And this was the same thing. I mean, there were some runs through the game where you would find the same rooms in the same order, and there were some runs where like you went back to that same room like 4 or 5 times in the same run through of that chapter. So I do enjoy that they were switching things around. Uh, I sort of liked, but also kind of got annoyed. There were times when like you'd walk up to a room and the door was locked. Okay, cool. That means in my head, like something behind me just changed. And so
Hmm.
I'd turn around and it looked the same. And I'd be like, what the hell? So then I'd walk like across the hall and try that door, and that door would be locked. And I'd be like, oh, the old double switcheroo here. And then I'd have to turn around and walk back to the other door, and then like it would open or something would be different. But I'm like, why didn't I just go through that door to begin with then? Like, what was the point of that? There's nothing being generated behind the scenes that's
Hmm.
changing because of that. Um,
Uh,
Really, to me, this just came down to I didn't feel like my actions had any consequences. Like that was the single biggest thing in this. So for me, I gave this a 4 out of 10. I'm labeling this one crap tonight.
mm. Um, I guess I'll go next. Uh, I remember having very mixed feelings about this when it first came out, and going back to revisit it, it hasn't changed my opinion of it much. The parts that I remembered hating, it had been long enough. I didn't remember the solutions to, so I still hated them. That whole like office puzzle thing, and the one in the kitchen, and atmosphere aside, there's just nothing remarkable about this. Sure, it looks nice, and the story at its core is tragic and depressing, but when you get to it at the end of the day, it's not scary. And it maybe the other endings are a little better, a little different. I don't know, but it, for what it is, I mean, if this was a book, I probably would like it better. But having to like slowly tromp my way through like the 20th hallway that looks the same as the other 20 hallways I've gone down, it just got so old after a while. I played far worse horror games, but I played so many that are better. 5 out of 10.
This would be like if they made The Shining into a book.
And then turned it into a game where it's full motion video.
There you go.
Uh,
All right, Brett,
uh,
save us. What'd you guys play on this? Did you Twitch this one, by the way, when you were playing it?
No, we didn't. No.
Okay, all right.
Um, I'm actually glad to hear what you guys said because I was very similar in my feelings, and I was looking at other ratings. I'm like, everyone loves this game. Why do I hate it?
oh.
But it wasn't just me. It was something else going on. But I I mean, you guys hit all of the big points. I don't know that I have anything new to say. I did enjoy, like I say, I enjoyed the psychological stuff. I enjoyed the fact that like I would walk into a room and I would turn around and it would change. I'd be like, oh, that's kind of it's fun. It's not necessarily scary, but it has a fun like things are changing like right before your eyes kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, and like I say, the jump scares were generally good. Um, I I I the story, like I say, the story kind of was um interesting, but it wasn't filled out enough for my kind of taste. Like it was a bit too vague. Like even just the fact that like none of the characters have names.
Hmm.
Like in every note, like the name is like scrawled out.
Mm,
It's so good to be
Yeah.
just like any character, like any, which I mean, I guess has a point that you could like make it about anyone you want. There's that, but I also it also led to it just felt very vague. Like there just wasn't it wasn't the story there. But um yeah, the puzzles for me were probably the biggest con to this, that they just were just very simple and not really engaging. Um but for the price I paid, I didn't like I wasn't upset. Like I paid like $3 for it.
yeah.
Hmm.
It was worth that to me. My wife and I had a good time. Uh, Johnny Speed just kind of experiencing this together. But yeah, I wouldn't pick this up again and play to try to get different ending. I wouldn't even play it just for the experience again, let alone trying to get another ending or not. Um, it was okay for what it was, but it's probably let's say 4.5.
Ooh, split the room. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that was not a well-reviewed game. Let's let's spend a minute here before we finish up this one on the DLC, which is called Inheritance. Um, so in this one, we play as the daughter going around more or less the same mansion with some remnants of things left behind by her dad. Now, I will say I have some praise for this, but I will say one thing that I just don't know about this is like how these two stories connect per se. Like I know it was the dad and the daughter, but did the dad like pass away and left her this house? Is that what's happening? Is he locked up? Is he insane? And is this 30 years later? Is this 20 years later? Did she not come to this house since then? Did she grow up in this house? Like I'm a
I
little
think
unclear there.
I think she grew up there. Time has passed. I don't know if the dad is dead or locked away, but she's certainly grown up at this point.
Yeah.
15 years, 20 years, 30, yeah, hard to say. But yeah, she has come back to either clear it out or just revisit her past. It's a little hard to say. Um, but either way, time has elapsed, I believe.
Okay. Okay, so this one I thought, first of all, when you start this one right away is different because there's voiceovers from the daughter. She's talking and like narrating things. And I had a more positive vibe on this one when I started it. I kind of had, I kind of had wished either the first game had been better and this was like a full sequel that I just happened to try, or I kind of wish that the developers had the story of the first game, but never made the first game and instead made this as the game. And I say that because the first game was really nebulous, but once I started playing this one and I was like, holy shit, like this is 20 times more traumatic to me because we're hearing about this girl who was a kid whose dad was a monster and like living through that environment every day. And I was like, oh, this is the day that like dad beat mom, and this is the day that he yelled at me for this. And like that was
Mhm.
way more traumatic for me, I thought, than the entire first game. All right.
Yeah. Oh, go on. What were
No,
you
go
gonna say?
ahead. You got something there.
Oh, yeah. As I said earlier, I didn't play this because I wasn't going to shell out more money for a game that was just sort of very mid. But I did watch a playthrough on YouTube. Shout out to Manly Badass Hero. He plays through a lot of horror games. He's always entertaining. But yeah, seeing like just the events that played out through this and just the creativity that went into like the depictions of things. It kind of felt like the DLC for the first Alan Wake versus the original game of that in a way, where they
Yeah.
just let loose. They had a little more freedom. They could do more. They could be more creative. That's what it felt like to me anyway. And yeah, I do agree that if they had incorporated more of that into the base game, it would have at least kept things fresh.
Yeah, there were some interesting ideas in this one. One of the cooler things I thought they did in this DLC was there was I thought it was going to be a short stretch, but it ended up being like maybe a third or fourth of the game for how short this is, where everything is like thrown off on the perspective. And when I first started, I was like, what the hell happened to my game? Like it glitched or something. It was like everything's off. And then it took me like literally 15 minutes probably to realize like, oh, I'm playing as a little kid who's like looking up at everything, and how tall everything is now has
Mhm,
changed, how literally everything from that house in the first game looks compared to how she would have seen that as a little kid. And I was like, that's pretty cool.
mhm,
You had to look up really far to like see door handles to like grab and like and move and stuff. So I thought that was kind of neat. And like some things that I think at least you could like just walk over in the first one, like were obstacles for her now, and like you had to kind of
mhm,
like choose your path a little bit more clearly.
mhm,
So I thought that was really cool as well. I liked in this DLC, like the dad just came through as more of a villain to me, where I don't
mhm.
know, like I guess I was supposed to feel sad for him in the first game, but
Yeah,
seemed kind of like an asshole. I don't know, but
yeah.
this game was like, yeah, he's the asshole. That's cool. There was some other cool stuff in this one. I actually thought the DLC for being as short as it was, maybe about an hour and a half, hour to an hour and a half, probably had more jump scares that got me actually than the base game did.
Mhm.
But I think it's just because they tried different things. Like if that dog sequence I mentioned didn't ring a bell, that was probably in the DLC then. But like just seeing
Mhm.
a dog like suddenly run across the hallway, you'd be like, what the hell? Kind of creepy stuff. There was another cool part where they like messed with perspective, and like the wall like just kept getting closer to you as you were playing, and like so they were trying new ideas around, like Justin said, which I thought was cool. And I messaged you guys and I was like, I think this DLC is like way better than the base game. And it was until I realized how short it was, which
Yeah.
maybe that's
Yeah,
my fault.
the playthrough I watched on YouTube was like an hour. So that tracks.
So yeah, not this is mild spoilers, but eventually, and for me it was a while into the game in the DLC, you like find like this hand-drawn colored page, and you find like this spot in the wall. I think it's in the dad's studio actually, where you can put like 9 pages on the wall, and they're gonna make like some bigger mural. And I was like, oh, this is cool. And there was like some shading from the crayons on the wall, so you had to kind of like figure out which of the 9 spots it went into, and
Mm,
then you found another one, and you're like, okay, I think this one matches here, and like it was making some weird, not single image, but like some kind of crazy mural type thing.
mhm.
Um, and stupid me, I was like, oh, this is actually a better puzzle than anything in the first game, not realizing that was the entire DLC was like trying to solve that one puzzle. So,
Yeah.
um, same thing here though. Like there were some moments where I felt like if you didn't solve the puzzle the first time, then like no redo, like you just failed. Like sorry you didn't do that right the first time. And the ending just bothered me on this one because it was so sudden. Like I said, I just had no clue that like those 9 pages was going to be the end of the DLC. And
Mhm.
I think I only found like 4 of the 9.
Oh.
Like there was like there was at least a room, if not maybe a hallway that I tried that I didn't get to. And when I put it up there, like, yeah, that's the end of the game. And I was like, but I didn't even get to go look in like the last room, and like because
Mm.
her world was much more static. Like she was literally walking through the house room by room,
Mhm.
with some crazy parts that were added in as well. But so I was kind of mad about that because I was like, well, I actually would have spent more time trying to find the pages if that was the case. But anyway. I thought it was better, but for how short it was, I don't think I can go like higher than 5 out of 10 on that. So there's that.
Ooh.
Okay, well, any last notes here on Layers of Fear? We'll keep this puppy moving.
I All I'm gonna say is, in my experience, Bloober Team has created one genuinely good game, that is Observer. It's a sort of retro cyberpunk kind of setting, very creative, very interesting, like puzzles and gameplay and just setting. Uh, but other than that, everything else I played from them has been pretty underwhelming, which has me very concerned for the fate of the Silent Hill 2 remake. So,
Yikes.
yeah, that's all I'm going to say on that.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, like Brett said, this was about $3 on sale. If you're interested in like a good walking hallway simulator where scares happen and a little atmosphere, maybe it's worth the $3. But as a game itself, I don't know that sounds like you're anybody is recommending this one tonight. So
Mm.
there's that. I will just very quickly end tonight by asking Justin, if you were walking down an old dilapidated mansion and you found yourself faced with something that was about to jump scare you, what would that thing be in the hallway that would jump scare you?
Uh, well, with my luck, it wouldn't be anything cool like a ghost or a Wendigo or some sort of werewolf or anything. It would probably just be a squatter with a knife, something that would actually kill me. So that's probably what it would be with my luck.
Dark. Dark. All right, let's end it with that tonight, ladies and gents. This has been a little classic or crap. We got 3 craps as our scores tonight, so we can label that one diarrhea. And we'll move on from there. So it's been another episode here of Friends Occasionally Not Disagreeing. And that's been Brett, that's been Justin, and this is Cody. And we'll see you next time on the pod. Take care. Bye.
See you next time.
Hey, fondlings and fondlers. This has been another episode of Friends Occasionally Not Disagreeing, your favorite podcast. It's most people's favorite podcasts, or at least so my mom tells me. You can check us out all over the place online at our homepage, www.fondpod.com or fondpodcast.com. You can also check us out across your social media sites, including Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, YouTube, and anywhere else you get your streamed podcast. Thanks so much.